You have so much control. So it's an amazing time to be in. But what it means is everyone's got the same tools. So now it comes down to how do you use those tools?
Welcome to the Reverse Engineer Podcast with your host, co-owner of Mastering.com and de facto Bob Ross of Music Education, Caleb Loveless.
Welcome into the Reverse Engineer Podcast. This week we have Damian Keyes on the cast. Damian is a lifelong musician, author, and owner of several music schools in the UK and in Europe. He's also owner of DamianKeyes.com, which is one of my very favorite places for people to go who are artists, who are looking to take their career to the next level. He has a very clear and concise way of helping artists build their brands, build their portfolio, and have success that they're looking for. So very excited to sit down with Damian today. Welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
Thank you so much. Very excited to be here.
You hail from Nashville, I think, right now, but grew up across the pond, right, over in Wales.
I did, yeah. I grew up in Wales, so Wales is like the poor relation to a lot of the other countries: England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland. Now I live in Nashville, and when people say where I'm from, and I say I'm from Wales, they think it's in London somewhere because it's just, not really heard of it. But yeah, Wales is like I suppose there's only one motorway in the entire country, so it's not the most developed. I grew up in a complete suburbia, and nothing to write home about as the I didn't have that kind of like the American Idol story or the X Factor story. It was just normal thing. I didn't really get into music when I was a kid. I was kicked out of music school or music class when I was a kid for being a bit
except for when I go over to Wales, everywhere is more beautiful than anywhere where I live. So, even the suburb, yeah, it's very green. Well, it makes it very green, so
yeah,
something magical over in Wales. Beautiful country. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
Good singers.
Yeah,
but don't ask for directions in Wales or you'll be covered in phlegm.
And you were saying you were talking about your schooling.
Yeah, so I went to normal school, and I didn't really get into music. In fact, I wasn't allowed to take music because I guess I was a bit disruptive in class. But I had a friend who was a guitarist, and I went with him for his birthday. He played like most kids. He played like that kind of classical guitar. And one day he was like, I want to play electric guitar because all the music he liked was electric guitar. So I remember going with him to pick up an electric guitar. It was probably like a Squire starter pack or whatever was the equivalent. Anyway, he'd been playing for a while and he was like, "Hey, we should start a band." And I was like, "That sounds great. I'll buy a guitar." And he was like, No, you can't. I'm the guitarist. You can't be a guitar. So I was like, "Well, what do I do?" He said, "You could be the bass player." And so I was like, "Sounds great. I don't know what that is, but I'll figure it out." So I went home. I asked my parents if I could have a bass for my birthday. And then when my birthday came around, they bought me this, it was called a Ninja bass. I've never seen one ever since, but it was like a silver Ninja. I loved it. Loved this bass. I just fell in love with it. And then just played it all day, every day. I was awful at school. I failed high school. And then whilst all my friends went off to high school, to do their A-levels, to go to college, I had to resit the entire year and I failed it again. So at this point, I was definitely not going to be a lawyer. So at that point, I was like, well, I love playing bass. And the good thing with being a bass player is you can kind of start straight away. You can just join a band within a day. Everyone needs a bass player. You don't really have to sit learning chords for months. You can just get some notes from the guitarist, play this note, then play that note, put your finger there. And so, but yeah, just absolutely fell in love with it. Joined a few bands. One of them started doing pretty well. And then we got signed and then we got dropped really, really quickly. And because I had no, educational background and being dropped off a label, nobody really cares. I was in Swansea in Wales. So I went to work in a factory, and it was a shampoo factory where my job was to stand at a conveyor belt and pick up shampoo bottle, wipe the top of the shampoo bottle, and put the shampoo bottle down on the conveyor belt. That was the entire job. So I was doing this for about 3.5 hours. And my friend, who was a drummer, he was there, and I said, "Oh, this is awful. This is horrible." And he said, "Oh, you get used to it after a while." And I thought, "What do you mean you get used to it?" I was like, "How long have you been doing this?" And he said, 7 years. I've been doing this for 7 years.
Oh, wow.
Oh, no. So I just put the shampoo bottle down. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but it isn't going to be this for the rest of my life, and I'm going to figure it out. So I left and went to music college. And luckily for me, it was a very early on in that music college. It was the very first year. And they kept me on as a bass teacher. And that's how I got into education. I fell in love with education. As much as I love playing and gigging and touring, education just felt like I was better at it, I think.
Interesting. So you had trouble learning. Well, not learning, you were probably bored in a lot of ways. Most people who are quite brilliant at what they do get a little bored coming up maybe through high school or different things. What switched though? Because at some point you went from, I'm failing school again to I'm in a factory, and then suddenly you're not only going to music school, but I'm now invited to teach.
I think the reason why I guess I was invited to teach, and the reason why I got into it so much, is because I understood people like myself who couldn't understand the education structure. So, for example, in education, there's one way. It's my way or the highway. This is how you learn. It's retain information, and there's nothing about understanding. It's just retain information, and you have to regurgitate information in a certain way. And my brain just says, even when I'm doing YouTube videos, or if I'm doing keynotes. I was doing a keynote a couple of weeks back for a DSP Tidal, and Tidal said, there's certain things we want to do. And in my head, I was thinking, please don't make me remember lines. I just can't remember lines. I can talk till the cows come home, but if you want me to remember specific things in a specific order, I revert back to being scared of the school days of, of the same thing. So I kind of recognize that not everyone learns in the same way. And so some people learn by doing or understanding. And some people just take things as a given, and you just explain it, and they just say, okay, fine. Other people, you say, hang on, you have to explain all of the bits. Why does that work? And how does that work? I need to understand the processes. And everyone learns in different ways. And I think for me, it was a way of saying, I can help someone understand something that they didn't understand. I think no one had ever done that when I was growing up. No one ever sat down and said, look, you don't get it, but that's fine. We can just find another way around the problem. And so I felt like I'd found my niche. I found the demographic of people where I was like, I understand. I see the problem, and I feel like, having spent so long playing bass and understanding, I feel like I can help you navigate the problems.
That's really interesting. It's been on my mind actually recently, how many different times in my life I've seen someone come in and really disrupt a space because they didn't know very much about it, or they couldn't do the normal way of doing it, and so they had to innovate a new way of doing something. And so I realized that it's good to learn, it's good to educate, but also sometimes it's good to just figure out a new way, right? And I've seen a lot of people do. It's very cool that at some point you just went, well, I can't do it the traditional way, so I'm just going to invent my own way. And this probably again led to how you teach now and how you're able to be successful in helping people. I mean, you tell me, how has that affected like everything you've kind of built since then?
I think, my wife and I joke about this. I feel like I have a lane. I'm very good in my lane. And as soon as I'm out of my lane, I'm awful. But, when it comes to my lane, I'm like, I understand. I think one of those things is I feel like my brain has to understand simplicity. So I have to be able to say, hang on, taking away all the complexities. I think most people in their brain, they think in a very complex way. It's like a human trait to think of complex ways of doing things. And I just don't think I have that brain capacity. So therefore my brain says, hang on, let's break everything down. Give me the simplest way of doing things. Quite a practical person. Give me the simplest way of doing things so I can achieve the thing that I need to achieve. And I find that if I strip out all of the stuff I don't know, in fact, I used to part of the teaching, I think one of the things is people tell you all the things that you need to know. And no one tells you what you don't need to know. People don't
Right.
say, you don't need to know this bit. So everything's all about what you need to know. And of course, there's millions of things. And nobody says, you don't need to know that. It's not important. So you go to you can go to any music university in the entire world, and they'll start teaching you, music business university. They'll start teaching you about what's in a record deal. And in my head, I always remember thinking, I don't care. Like, that's what a lawyer's for. Tell me how I get one of these things. That's what I want. I don't care what's in it. I don't care about 0.9, 0.1. Like,
Yeah.
just give me the information of how I get it, and then I can progress. And so I think that's the bit, is how do you simplify what you want to achieve and how your skill set fits into that in the simplest form, because usually when it's broken down, then in a practical way, it's easier to achieve.
Yeah, that resonates with me a lot. I think there's a lot of power in taking complex systems and just kind of narrowing it down to the core of things, the simple part. There's always something that's core and simple about it that is probably the most valuable to focus on. It moves the needle the most in terms of the value of that certain line of thinking or whatever you're studying. So that's really cool that your brain works that way. I resonate with that. I feel like I've done that a little bit in my life too, just taking complex systems, and maybe because I'm just not keen enough to fully understand the complexity, I just go, hey, let's just make this simpler. And that seems helpful for people. So you're teaching bass. What's next? Where did it go from there?
So I'm teaching bass. I'm teaching kids at this point. Like, there were two bass teachers at the time. One of them went off snowboarding, never came back again, and the other bass teacher got snowed in. It was like snowstorm. So there's only 8 guys in the class, and I was like, I went downstairs and I was like, don't send us home. I was like, I can do this. Like, let me just take the class for a day or two, and then when the guy comes back. And after that, they said, look, we've got these evening classes where we teach kids, literally, people at school and hobbyists. We used to call them weekend warriors. And they're like, just want to learn to play bass. Can you do this? And I was like, yeah, great. And I had this issue where it got to the end of the semester, and I was teaching 3. There's no bass players in the world. So I was teaching 3 bass players, and one of them was leaving to do his exams and the other one was moving away. And I was thinking to myself, I'm going to get sacked if I'll get fired if I lose 66% of the entire class. I felt responsible. So I thought, I won't tell anyone. I'll go find some bass players and bring them in. So I went down the local music shop and I just sat there for hours talking to musicians and figuring out bass players, and then being like, talking about technique. And in the end, we ended up with about 10 bass players on this course. And the guy who owned the school, when he found that out, he brought me in and he was like, you've got a lot of bass players. What happened? And I thought I was in trouble. So I was like, oh no. And he said, can you do the same thing for guitar and drums? And I was like, I don't know. I'll give it a go. So I just went down the music. I went down. I never in my wildest dreams I thought about business at one point, any at all, or sales or any of those things. I was just like, I'll just find some bass players. So I did the same thing, and we built this part-time school, and it got bigger and bigger. And then there was basically, they asked me to stay on as the core management of this college, which just kept getting bigger and bigger. And then after about 5 years of growing this school, myself and one of the other guys, I was driving this clapped out Ford Escort. It was a clapped out car. And, my bass was I had one bass, which was just an old Fender. And the guys who owned the music college were just loaded. We were just rich. All his money was coming in. And we were like, this seems unfair. So we were like, we're going to set up our own version. So we left, and the idea was to set up a music university, which was very small. Like, it was only ever going to have 300 students max. That was it. Like, we're going to set up the best. This has to be as good as Berkeley. When I was a kid growing up, I was like, got to be as good as Berkeley. 300 students, and it's never going to get any bigger than that. And then it was going to be first year 100, second year 200, third year 300. And then first year we had like 184 students. Second year was 400.
Wow.
Next year it was like 700. And then it just kept growing out of control. And then we went to another city, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. It was never thinking to myself, business. If you'd have said, oh, you're a businessman, I'd been like, oh, I'm a bass player. That's what I do. I'm a bass player, and I just love education. That was the thing. But it kept growing and growing and growing. And it got a bit out of hand, and it got to a point where it engulfed every part of my life. It engulfed, it was a huge thing. And And I loved it. The bits I loved, and I think the bits that broke it for me was I loved it so much, but I loved sitting down with musicians and just saying, let's figure this out. What do you want to achieve and how are we going to do it? We're going to come up with it together. But there is no, there is no instruction manual for every single person. There's not a one size fits all because everyone's got a different skill set. Everyone's in a different genre. Everyone's in a different talent. Everyone's got different circumstances or different financial capabilities. So it's like, well, let's figure out your route because your route's going to be different to everyone else. So we'd sit down, we'd have a pad of paper and a pen and good old British cup of tea. And we just sit there for hours writing out, I want you to do this and come back in a week when you've done that. And I loved that aspect of it. And I loved seeing people grow. And then after about, whatever it was, 8, 9, 10 years, I found myself in meetings with, all the accountants and, we'd have board meetings, which lasted 8 hours long. And I was like, I don't feel like I'm sat there with musicians at the moment. I feel like I'm sat doing other things. And, I think for me, that was the bit that has always been the most fun, sitting down, talking about music, talking about strategies. And I think, probably like yourself, I feel like I'm a student at all times. I'm watching what's happening in the music industry right now, even though I'm more involved in the music industry now than I've ever been. It's crazy the stuff that you find yourself in because you've got a YouTube channel and, talk about imposter syndrome where you're sat in these meetings and you're thinking to yourself, sometimes I'm sat in meetings with people who've got like 100x my followers. And I'm just like, they're asking me about socials. And I'm like, I think I should be asking you about socials. But you're sat there talking about this stuff. And I'm like, I'm learning all of the time, every day. And then, you've got new platforms that are coming out, new strategies that are happening, AIs, all of this stuff that's happening. And my brain is just taking it in going, this is interesting. And so I think that's the bit I love is not how does this work, but how is this going to work today? Because today is different to yesterday and tomorrow is different to today. So we've always got to be ahead of the game. Otherwise, we're back in printing a bunch of CDs and T-shirts and leaving them under the bed.
Right.
Otherwise, we can't go back to those days. So we've got to figure out today's strategy.
I've always felt like the music industry moves really, really fast. It's part of the reason I think a lot of the older education platforms aren't serving musicians very well because a lot of times they get bogged down with red tape or different things and they're just not able to move at the speed of the industry. One of the things I know it sounds like you're doing. And,
do you know what? It's hard.
We're doing too.
That's really difficult. It's really difficult because, having been in that situation, you write your curriculum 12 months in advance.
Yeah.
So, I could write a base course or a business course right now, which might be a year or even, it might even be a 3-year long course, a 3-year degree, but you might write all of it. You might write the first course. Can you imagine, in 12 months from now, where the music industry is going to be? And I'd be writing a course now for September. So it's kind of 18 months. Yeah. And so the stuff that I'm writing in 18 months time, I'll be like, oh, it's changed. It's all changed. So it's not their fault. It's just, that's the way that education works compared to the music industry.
Totally. Yeah. It's not like anyone's trying to be antiquated. It's just the nature of how some things are structured that makes certain entities, I think, quite antiquated. And so it sounds like you have a similar kind of idea to us, where you're trying to think of the next thing, not the last thing. You have your finger on the pulse of the industry right now. Where do you think it's going? What problems are we solving, and what new problems are we creating?
This is the bit. I could talk about this for 7 hours, because what's really interesting is now moving to Nashville was interesting. Ends up moving to Nashville. We're traveling around during COVID, and again, everything online education. You can now do anything from anywhere. It's brilliant. Came to Nashville, and of course, within weeks, I found myself in meetings with labels, DSPs, managers, artists, which then grows and builds, and you start seeing these pain points and the old school traditions versus the new school kind of way is very interesting. So, an example of that is, taking us back. Like, I'm not talking about 90s. I'm talking about a couple of years ago. You were able to use money to advertise on YouTube, and the streams that you would get from YouTube would count towards charting. So you could, do it as you will. You want to get a chart, then, let's get in there. Let's buy these things. So we still are in a time where in the States, if you want to go and do a radio tour, in country music, for example, radio tour, it's going to cost you upwards of $500,000 just to do that radio tour with no guarantees, because you're not going on radio. You're just meeting up with, a coordinator and a supervisor or the head of the label and just having a chat and playing them a song and hoping for the best. And this happens all of the time. So, these labels have come from the 90s, where they could print out some CDs, get the distribution into shops, and all of a sudden it's just a license to print money. All of a sudden it's like, well, we're still the bank of the label. We can still put the money into the artist. Now, where's the return on investment? Because streaming is now different, and touring is now different, and merch is different, and syncs, and everything's different. Everything's changed, but you still have to get the attention. And so, and now what's really interesting is everyone, I feel like I represent a lot of artists. The whole channel I have is all about artists doing DIY or, LIY, lead it yourself, DIY, do it yourself. And so the great thing is everyone can do it themselves, but everyone says, oh, the problem is there's so much to do. Well, imagine it from a record label's point of view, where, they've got to invest $1 million into an artist when there's, anyone can do distribution,
right?
A couple of bucks, and all of a sudden I've got all my music out there. I've got TikTok, I've got Spotify, I've got all the DSPs, I've got Instagram, I've got Facebook. I can do all of the same things. Because when I got signed, I mean, this is something that crops up on my YouTube. It's like the music industry is like, it's not what it used to be. And I'm like, it's much better than it used to be. It's like, you have so much control. Like back in the day, if you came from a small town, how could you possibly get signed? Because you're not getting on radio. You're not getting on TV. You're not going to be able to get your music printed onto 1 million CDs and distributed to all of the shops or stores all across the States. I'm like, you haven't got that much money. And record, you'll know this as well, is when it comes down to recording, I mean, the first time, when we got put in the studio back then was $2,000 a day. This was 20 odd years, 25 years ago. It was like $2,000 a day, not including the engineer and the producer and how long you had to be there. We're just talking about just the day rate of the studio back then. So nowadays it's like, I plug in a few things and I can probably learn how to do a certain amount of it myself. And there's tools. So it's an amazing time to be in. But what it means is everyone's got the same tools. So now it comes down to, how do you use those tools? How do you get what you're doing out there? How do you break through the noise, as people call it, the noise? And how do you get people to pay attention? Because the one thing I've definitely learned is getting attention is now easy. Like, it's not just easier than it's ever been. It is so easy to get attention. The problem is, how do you keep it? Because that's the hard bit. How do you get people to care? If I want to get attention, I can put out a TikTok, I can boost it with $1 and get a few hundred people to see it. I've just got that. Imagine if a couple, 20 years ago, I'd be like, oh, you got 200 people to your gig. You'd have gone, wow, that's incredible. Now I can put $1 in and get a couple of hundred people to see me, to pay attention to me. Problem is there I am, there I've gone. So the hard part then is, how do I get people to come back and care, really care for what I'm doing and buy into who I am? I don't have to spend hundreds of thousands or thousands of dollars on advertising in magazines and radio and all these things. I can do this organically for free if I'm good at it, or if not, I can put some money into it and I can get this in front of the right people. The question is what are you putting in front of those people? What message is it? Who are you as an artist? And so, if it's not working, maybe the music, maybe you, the artist, or maybe the message of how you're putting it out there. There aren't really any other ways of doing it. It's like, if there's a problem and no one's paying attention, it's either the music isn't good enough, the artist is not strong enough with what message they're trying to get across, but the music is good enough, or both the artist and the music is fantastic, but you're just really bad at actually getting your music out there. Or a mixture of the three. So the bit is, how do we make sure that we can put a strategy together to find the right audience? And the way the industry is going, which is catching up, it really is trying to catch up, is understanding that the gatekeepers aren't in control. So, for example, 20 years ago, you would choose the single. You'd say, right, hang on a minute. We've recorded these 12 songs. We wrote 100. We chose 12 of them with the A&R. And then out of those 12, we will choose the first single because that's the way it works. And then we record it. We put it out first. And it goes to radio. Not anymore. Now I can put all 12 songs out in some form or other, and I can let the audience decide. And the audience is going to have a completely different idea to me because it's subjective. So I might think that the best songs are A, B, and C. And the audience say, no, this is the best song. And that's the one that's going to blow up. But I wouldn't have known unless if I wasn't trialing it. So, the labels are basically saying, well, if I'm going to invest $1 million, I kind of want some proof. So if you can just show me that the audience like this and I'm all in. And I think a lot of artists don't like that. They like the idea of saying, well, hang on a minute, you're the label, you're supposed to make this happen. But it's a tough gig. Imagine if you did that with a business and someone says, look, I'll invest in your business. Have you sold anything? And you say, no, nothing, absolutely nothing. Great, no worries at all. Here's a bunch of millions, go and have some fun with it. It's the same thing. A label is just a bank. The label's saying, look, I think this is really good. I really believe in it. I personally still believe that A&R in labels are trying to do the right thing. They're trying to find artists that they believe in with a voice that they believe in. The problem is they also want it to work. So therefore, they kind of would like a little bit of proof to make sure that what they think is happening, the audiences think is happening too. So therefore, navigating socials is a part of it.
Got it. So because there's a lot of complexity. I think people are very confused about how to get from A to Z when it comes to artist development. There's a lot of different ways to go. Do I go through some licensing and try to build things that way? Or do I get on playlists? Or do I start reaching out to A&Rs if I'm ready? Like if my music's ready, what do you think the roadmap is there? If you broke it down to simplicity, like we've been talking about, what's the roadmap from my stuff's good, I'm ready to push my career? What's the roadmap?
So what's really interesting there as well, and going back to what we were talking about of keeping it as simple as possible, artists are always, one thing with artists is every artist will be nodding when I say this. Every artist suffers from overthinking because every artist is like a million things going through their brain, and they've already come up with problems for 5 steps ahead in the chess game before they even started the chess game. So from a simplicity point of view, this is the most important thing, I think. Artists are trying to think about A to Z. Okay. Most artists don't even know what Z is. They just say, look, whatever Z is, I want that, but I don't know what that is. The problem is we don't need to think that far ahead. As an artist, if I was working with an artist, I'm not trying to go from A to B. I'm trying to go from A to A.5, which is a big, big difference because the way I think of it is like, if you remember the, Back to the Future film. And in Back to the Future, the 88 miles per hour is the key. That's the pivot. If you get to 88 miles per hour, which then you press the button for the flux capacitor, and at which point you go back to the future. So A.5 is 88 miles per hour. That's what we've got to get to. The rest of it, the Back to the Future bit, all of that happens from there on. Now, what that means is if we can get to A.5 with what we're doing, we build enough momentum to get to 88 miles an hour. They come for you. The rest happens for you because when you get to A.5, everyone is waiting for you. The industry is waiting for you. The audience is waiting for you, or the audience is now excited and it's building for you. Managers, live agents, labels, merch stores, like whatever you want, everyone is waiting at A.5, not at B. When you get to A.5, you have all of the options. So the question is, how do we build enough audience to start building momentum so we're driving? And how do we get fast enough to get to 88 miles per hour when then we fly into the future? And the question there is, we have to take it one day at a time, simple as possible. Firstly, we have to understand who the demographic is. And secondly, we have to understand what our skill set is. So I was working with an artist about a couple of months back. We do a lot of these like outside shoots because we live in Nashville. It's beautiful weather, but golden hour comes down. We go outside, we can shoot like 30 pieces of content in half an hour, 40 minutes before the sun goes down. And we're working with this artist, and he used to be signed to UMG, biggest label in the world, amazing artist. And we're trying to make content. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, it's just not quite sitting with me. It's not quite there. So we're working on some different ideas. Anyway, we see this step and I'm like, oh, that's quite a step. Sit on the step. he's got his acoustic guitar, and we're just sort of trying to find the angle and stuff. And I went, do me a favor, just sing me a song, right? I don't care about pressing play and miming the song. Just sing me the song. So he goes, okay. So he starts singing this song. Like as soon as he starts singing this song, I get, the hairs on your arms start standing up. And I'm like, oh, wow, this guy's voice. Oh my Lord, unbelievable. And instantly, the first thing I thought was, you have to go where the treasure is, because like dancing around doing TikTok stuff, I'm like, this is not this guy. This guy's not there being like, what's up, guys? How you doing? You're welcome to my TikTok. He's just not that guy. So I'm like trying to think of all the things that's going to work. And then he just sits down and sings me this song. And I'm like, oh man, that's going to work, because that's the bit where people are going to see it. And they're just going to say, you're the guy I want on my TikTok. And so the next person might say, well, I can't do that. I can sing a song, but I'm not, I'm not that type of artist that could just stop traffic with the way I sing. But I have got a personality. Great. We're going to work on that. Or it might be, I'm a songwriter. Great. Well, what we're going to do is if we can write songs and produce them at scale, then every single day, hey guys, I wrote this today. I just thought I'd show you guys. It's just a different tactic. So it's going where the treasure is. There's a very famous book called How to Get Rich, which is not just financially, but How to Get Rich by a guy called Felix Dennis. And he says, if you want the treasure, you have to go to the X marks the spot on the treasure map. That's where the treasure is. So if you're digging elsewhere, I'm just letting you know, you're digging in the wrong place. You've got to go to the treasure map where it says X marks the spot. Same thing. If you're the type of artist that says, hey, I'm cooler than everyone else, then I'm like, great, that's what we're going to use in the content. If you can just sit down and sing a song from scratch, that's what we're going to use. If you say, I got great personality, that's what we're going to use. If you're a songwriter or a lyricist, that's what we're going to use. And so everyone's different, but you've got to find the treasure. Now, if you can put these things together consistently, the next bits are just the small, sweating the small stuff. So for example, the framing of the shot, the lighting of the shot, the production, the audio, things that you can learn. I'm not very good at this, but I've definitely learned about framing and lighting and audio production, and just trying to improve these things little bit by bit. And everyone's so caught up in this, got to hit the ground running. I've got to get these numbers, and not thinking, well, I'm going to be doing this for 20 years. So therefore, what I've got to do is I've got to make 100, 200, 300, 400 pieces of content. I've got to learn how this works about myself and what's working. And if you do it, you start get the ball rolling. And the faster you get, the more you learn, the faster you get, until you hit 88 miles per hour. And that's the bit we've got to concentrate on. How do I get enough momentum so that everyone comes in and says, do you know what? I love it so much. I'm going to help you with the management. I'm going to help you with the live agent. I want you to come and play my gigs, because these opportunities are now coming to you, rather than you having to say, please, can I be on your radio show? Please, can I be on your TikTok and do a collab? No. Until you hit 88 miles per hour and the phone goes and it's like, hey, would you mind being on my podcast? Would you mind being on my blog? Would you mind being on my radio show? Because you hit the 88 miles per hour.
Awesome. So to surmise that, or to break that down even more simply, you're talking about content, and you're talking about creating content that fits the brand, if you want to call it, or the soul of the artist, and putting it out there until it gains enough attention to where it kind of hits this snowball effect, or there's people waiting for you at a certain point. Is there anything else that's important to understand about that content creation, how to find your target audience that's important? Yeah. And what is the 88 miles an hour? What is there a number? Is there something that people really need to focus on that is relevant?
I think there is a number. Do you know, it's weird, because I think if you ever ask a label, they go, I don't know what the number is, but it's that kind of, I don't know what it is, but I'll know it when I see it. Right. And I usually think to myself, it's probably about 100,000. I'm just like, I'll stick a number on it, probably about 100,000. It might not be, it might be 50 if someone really believes in it, but usually 100,000 people start going, well, this is really good. Now, for a lot of people, when they hear that might be quite off-putting, where they think, oh my Lord, it's taking me this long to get to 1,000 or 500. But exponential growth is very, very different. Just because it's taken you, it took me a whole year, 12 months of making probably a video at least every other day on YouTube to get to 1,000 subscribers, a whole year, like 12 months, almost to the day. And then in the second year, I went from 1,000 subscribers to like 33 or 35,000. So I didn't go from 1,000 to 2,000 in the second year. I went from 1,000 to 33. And then in the third year, 33 to 100 or whatever it was. So, it's this exponential growth that you're looking for. And also, you're only one piece of content away from something big happening. So we started working with one artist, and he's signed the label. We're talking to about TikTok, and he was saying, I'm a bit worried about this. It's not my thing. I don't really know what to do. He's our mate. So I was like, we'll go out and shoot some stuff. We just went out, had a bit of fun, put out a piece of content on the first day. Second day, he put out the second piece of content. Within 24 hours, he had 10,000 followers. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen to anybody, but if you can, this was only 6 months ago. This isn't like, and everyone's like, oh, that was easy 5 years ago. It's easy if everything's good, if the music's good, the content's good, the story's good. So it can grow. Not that that will always happen. But the key here, to answer your question, is we live in a time now where attention is very, very short, like really short, to the point where our finger is now the most powerful thing in the world. It's like I scroll up, and my only decision now is not what do I fancy. My decision now is, do you want one more or not? There's another one. All you've got to do is swipe up and there's something new, like a kid in a candy shop. There you are, there you've gone, there you are, there you've gone. And so what we've got to do is we've got to make sure that we are making content that people want to watch. So the first part is the hook, making sure that people take their finger off the screen because they scroll. They take their finger off the screen and they say, what's this? What am I watching here? So that first initial second is very important. So the title, the text that's on the screen, or the context, as I like to call it, is very, very important. The framing, the shot, the audio, the production, it helps. But most importantly, I think this is where artists don't like it. Artists don't want it to be about content. But if you're a really strong artist, then people will take their finger off the screen. They'll say, oh, who's this? This looks good. I like this. And so when people say it should be about the music, which I get all of the time, this should be about the music. I'm like, when has it ever not been about the music? Like, whoever in life have you ever met that's an artist that goes, music's a bit shit, really? I don't care. It's like, no one thinks that. Everyone thinks their music is good. Everyone's trying to do the best job that they can.
Right.
And so we're trying to put out this content that reflects us as artists. So there's 3 parts to this, which is the audio, the visuals, and the story. And most artists are very concerned with the audio of the song itself. But the audio doesn't, I think this is a really crucial part where most artists fall down. The audio doesn't build a fan base. It isn't all about the audio, because otherwise that's called a one-hit wonder. Do you remember that song by so-and-so, so-and-so? Who's it by? I don't know, but I like the song. Well, you're not going to be going and buying their merch because you're not attached to the brand. You're probably not going to buy tickets because you don't know any of their stuff. You just like the song. You're a fan of the song. Whereas when you're a fan of the artist, then that's when you're a monetizable fan. I want to wear a t-shirt with my favorite artist. I want to go to a gig by my favorite artist. I want to do those things. So the visuals of the artist is very important. And so if you think about your favorite artists of all time, they might not represent social media, but you'll still resonate with them as artists. Even if they say, we hate social media, you say, fine, that's great. I hate social media too. Brilliant. I'm still going to turn up to the gig because visually and audibly, this connects with me. So you've got the audio, you've got the visuals, and you've got the context and the story. And the story is now more crucial than it's ever been. So what happens is artists are storytellers. As an artist, I'm not an artist, but as artists, all artists tell stories. That's their job. In their lyrics, in their subject matter, in who they are just walking stories. But for some reason, when it comes to social media, they don't tell a story. So what happens is they've got this great story. I was working with an artist not so long back, and she had this song called The Last to Know. And I was like, oh, it's such a great time. And she was like, yeah, basically my boyfriend was cheating on me and I was the last one to know. And I was like, oh, that's horrible. So she started making content. And she started making content. And the content basically said, I wrote this song because I went through a breakup 6 months ago. And I was like, dude, that's such a horrible, amazing powerful story and you've told it in the shittest way possible. What a horrible way of telling a story. Yeah, I wrote a song because I broke up with someone. Great. Boring. I'm off already. So we start thinking about, you didn't tell a story like that in the song. You told a story in an amazing way. So like, why can't we tell the story on social media in an amazing way? So, we started thinking about just the way to present it. And the story of the text, because she's just singing her song, the story of the text said something like, 6 months ago, my world got turned upside down. So instantly you're like, oh, what happened? And then the next piece of text comes up and it says, I've never felt so lost or alone. You're like, oh no, what happened? And then it's like, why was I the last to know? I wrote this song about it. By which point you're 10 seconds into the piece of content and your watch time's gone up. So therefore you're getting more views. It's so simple. All we've done is said, you're a storyteller. Tell a story, but don't tell a story in the lyrics. Tell a story in the TikTok. Tell a story in Instagram. Tell a story wherever you are. And don't just say, you have to listen to the song for the story, because that's the bit. If we put that expectation on people, that's where people say, I haven't got time. Just give me the thing. And as soon as I've got the thing, I'm going to leave. So we have to kind of almost like provoke this, this sort of weird, I need to know. I'm intrigued by what's happening. So it's just telling a story, but it's the audio, the visuals, and the story. They're the only three parts to the piece. So after that, if it's not working, if it's not the audio or the visuals, it's story. If it's not the story, it's the audio, the visual. So it's trying to keep things as simple as possible. But the last piece then is how you get in front of the right demographic is because you respect the platform. So at the moment, you'll hear loads of people being like, I'm not using TikTok, Chinese spyware. And I'm like, fine, no worries at all. I don't care. Like, to use whichever platform you want. It makes no difference. TikTok is the easiest to get discovery right now, but it might not be in 6 months' time. Someone might be listening to this podcast in 6 months' time and going, TikTok's gone.
TikTok's banned everywhere, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it doesn't make any difference. I don't care. Like, I was at a label the other day, and one of the people from the label was like, what are your thoughts on TikTok? What if TikTok goes? And I'm like, we'll probably high five each other and there'll be something else around the corner. There's always something else. We'll find another way. So I don't care. I don't care what TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or whatever is the thing. I care about, how do I get this thing in front of people? But respecting that the algorithms in these platforms, including Spotify, but including all of these platforms, are unbelievably good. Like, to the point where 5 years ago, if you'd posted 3 things on Facebook, someone would message you and be like, dude, stop it. You're clogging up my feed. And we're terrified of this. I'm going to spam somebody.
Yeah.
You can't spam someone on TikTok, because if you scroll up past them and you haven't watched it, TikTok just goes, got it, figured it out. I won't show you that again for the rest of the day. So the algorithm's incredible. If you start watching certain things, TikTok says, I know what to show you, and it starts bringing things in. And if you scroll past it, it's constantly just tweaking your algorithm. So what that means is you don't have to try and get the content in front of the right people. You have to tell the platform what you're posting so the platform knows who to show it to. So, for example, if you put a piece of content out, I'm in Nashville, so I'm dealing with a lot of country artists. So I want TikTok to say, oh, this is country music and you're a country artist. Oh, this is a country song. Because if TikTok knows that, TikTok says, oh, I know loads of people to show this to.
Right.
I figured it out. The problem is as soon as I put that piece of content out, TikTok says, is this motorbikes, or is this cooking, or is this like UFC? I don't know what it is. So I'm just going to throw it out to anybody and see if I can figure it out. Doesn't figure it out. And then goes, oh, I couldn't figure it out. So I just stopped, because I didn't really want to upset people by putting it out in front of the wrong people. Whereas if we say, well, hang on, let me use the opportunities of the description, of the hashtags, of the text within the actual piece of content, with the voice recognized AI that's getting stronger and stronger. Because if, for example, I'm a country artist and I'm saying, what's up, my name's Damian, I've just written the country song of the summer. Everyone's like, oh, that's cheesy. And I'm like, maybe so. But if TikTok goes, oh, country song, got it, hang on a minute, let me show this to people who like country music, and I go and get an extra 100,000 views, and people say it's cheesy, I'm like, cheesy in front of 100,000 people, thank you very much. And that to me means that I'm playing the game. So I'm playing the right game, because I'm not trying to get this in front of randomers. I'm saying, I need TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. I need them to just go, oh, why didn't you say? I know how to get in front of those people. Let me go and show them.
How do you inspire people who get a little stuck mentally with kind of saying, I don't want to play the game because that's disingenuous?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to play do you want to play the game? I don't play the game sucks. The thing with the game is, I think there's this idea that we're all here being like, oh, I love it. This is perfect. The amount of people that are like, this is bullshit. It should be about the music. I should be able to go on tour. It's like, you can do all of these things. The problem is, it depends what you want the end goal to be. If you want the end goal to be, I want as many people to hear me or see me or know who I am as possible, then you have the option to do it, or you don't. And I don't think anyone's there being like, oh, please let me post another TikTok today. That's perfect for my career. I mean, I'm 46 years old. I'm not there being like, oh, I love TikTok. I'm just like, TikTok works. I can get it out. I can use Instagram Reels. I can use YouTube. So, I think firstly understanding that this isn't an age thing. This isn't it's for kids. It's like, no, it's not. The fastest growing demographic on TikTok's like over 40s. It's mainstream now. And if you don't like TikTok, it's Reels. And if it's YouTube Shorts or it's Facebook Reels, it's whatever you want it to be. I think the main thing is it has to be real for you. So don't get caught up in what TikTok is. If you think, oh, TikTok's cheesy, it's like, maybe so. You don't have to play that game. You can be as real as you want it to be. And so, I'm 46. I don't look through TikTok and I go, oh, look, a 15-year-old singer-songwriter. I'm like, that doesn't appeal to me. You've got no life experience the same way as I have. But then I'm scrolling up, all of a sudden, some hairy metal band pops up and I'm like, that's me. There I am. Like, that's what I want to see, whatever that's going to be. And so the algorithm says, gotcha, I've figured that out. And it gives me things that I want to see.
Right.
So I would say it's not something that we all love. We're not all saying, I want to do content all day, but I do want the results, and I do think there's another thing here as well, which is, playing the game is really important, because everyone who thinks that it's not what it used to be, there's always been a game. When I got signed, the game was, how do I attract A&R to figure out who I am so they'll come to my show, so maybe I'll get signed, so I get inside the gates so that they will make a record for me and put that record out, play the game. Now it's, how do I get people to know who I am? Well, unfortunately, that game isn't going out and playing a local gig in a local club. Now that game is working on social media. But how I do that is up to me. So for example, if you want to play the organic reach game, as in go viral, and 3 times a week, I'll hear from some label executive or someone in our sort of circle of artists. Viral, got to go viral, want to go viral, something about viral. And I always say the same thing is like, hey, if you want this artist to go viral, I promise you, I can make you go viral. I can make anyone in the world go viral, which is so empowering and so inspirational. Here's the key. You won't do the things that I want you to do to go viral. Because if you want to go viral, I'm going to throw you out of a helicopter. I'm going to take you to Florida and I'm going to dump you in a crocodile pit and see if you can get it. Because
Exactly.
That's going to go viral. Actually, it's going to go down. It's going to go viral.
You'll
I promise
Mr. Beast it.
Yeah. It's like, we can all do that. I'm going to say, don't worry, we're going to go viral. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to start in LA and you're going to walk to New York. Vlog when you're there. I'll put a video together. Let me know when you're done. Like, that's a game. You can play that game. But then people say, no, I just want to go viral for my music. Okay, but that's tough, because now you're saying, you don't know who I am. You don't really care who I am. Please, can you fall in love with me instantly and tell the world about me? No, that's really difficult. But there's a second game that people don't understand, which is, I don't play that. I'm not interested in going viral either. As an outcome, I would like it, but I'm not playing that game. My game is, as a helper of artists, same as yourself. My game is, how do I get every single musician / artist in the entire world to know who I am? Well, there's loads of ways I can do that. I can make content and I can boost it. I can put money into it. I can make ads. And so when someone says, didn't go viral, I'm like, I don't care. As long as every musician in the world knows who I am, that's what I care about. And so once you know your demographic, if you're in a prog rock band that plays 7-minute epic prog rock songs, then it's like, well, you need the prog rock community to know who that is. Now you can go and make organic reach content and hopefully that'll do the best. But also you can make good quality content that works for your audience. And then you can ensure that gets in front of people. And if you do that enough, they'll go, oh, I know you. I've seen you before. I like your stuff. And that familiarity gets more. And that's when people come in and, and they hit the follow button, or you can retarget. So you don't have to play this viral game. You don't have to go and do TikTok dances or try and figure out what the brand new trend is, unless you say, I have no money. There is zero money. I am literally, this is how much I make. This is how much I spend. That's it. So I'm like, great. Well, we have to play the viral game. We have to try and get the organic reach out there. We have to use the tools of, like I was saying, with the storytelling and just trying to build the watch time. But you don't have to play that. The game is, how do you build an audience? You make really good content and you make sure people see it in whatever way that you can do that.
Two important things, I think, came from all of that, which are, you can do it genuinely. You just need to find that way of doing it. If you don't have money, it's going to be a little less. You don't have to stop being genuine, but you have to go to more extremes, potentially. But ultimately, you really need to find what makes the algorithm understand where to send the information to. Is there like techniques for that, or is it luck, or is it an SEO thing? How does that happen?
I think it's all three. I mean, sometimes you'll put a piece of content out and all of a sudden it just flies and you just think, I'm a genius. I did it. I cracked it. I cracked the code. TikTok, finished the game. And the next day you post a piece of content and you get 200 views and you just think, why is it forsaken me? It's gone. What have I must be terrible at this. And so that's the anxiety game. I hate the anxiety game. I hate the fact that artists have to play this game of numbers, because that's where it is an anxiety roller coaster, mental health. I hate it. And I get it myself. I'm making a YouTube video, and you make a YouTube video, and on you go on your YouTube studio and it ranks your videos for the last 10 videos out of 10. So it literally tells you how good you are or how bad you've been. So it literally, after 30 minutes, it says, this video you just made, proper shit. And you're like, oh, thanks. It makes me feel terrible. And so these numbers then feed into your brain. Oh, it didn't work so well today. Oh, tomorrow I've got to get better. I've got to do some more. I've got to do more numbers. It's a horrible, horrible game. Instead of thinking, hang on a minute, let's play a different game. How do I create something that I think is going to be valuable to the other side? If one thing I would advise people to do is know your demographic to the point where you can name them. So, I have 3 people I think about in my demographic, and I've named them. And so, one of them is called Sean. And Sean's a 33-year-old with 2 kids who's got a job that doesn't really like his job, that really would like to quit his job. He used to do music, but then life caught up with him. And now he's getting back into music. And if he could quit to do this full time, even if it was taking a bit of a pay cut, he would love that. I know, I can picture Sean in my head, and I'm like, I know Sean. And there's a lot of people who'll be watching it goes, oh, I'm like Sean. Yeah. This is like me. And so I'm like, but I've named him. And so when I'm making content, I'm thinking about Sean. And so, when you're making content, I'm not thinking, what do I fancy making today? I'm thinking, what does Sean need today? What does Sean want to see? And so if he's thinking about, as an artist, if you just say, well, I wrote this song. I'm just going to sing Sean this song because I know Sean's going to like this song. And I'm going to tell him the meaning of it. I'm going to tell him the story of it. And Sean's scrolling and he's seeing cat videos and he's seeing his favorite influencers. And then you pop up and without saying, hey, Sean, you're basically saying, this is my little 20 seconds of the day. And Sean watches it and goes, that's amazing. And then he's off to the next thing, but he's taken it in, and he's building that familiarity. And so we're not trying to take over the world with a piece of content. What we're trying to do is we're trying to piece by piece just build value. And so there is an element of luck. There is an element of skill. There is an element of repetition. But I think the main thing is if you can say, I'm making something, I'm creating something, which might take me some time, because the amount of people that say, oh, I've made this TikTok in 10 seconds. Why hasn't it gone viral? And I think, well, can you imagine that if it was a Netflix series? I made this in an hour and I put it live. Let's hope it's really good. It's probably going to be pretty crap. Just because you're seeing something in 15 seconds, it doesn't mean that you need to spend 15 seconds on it. You should, that was 2019, 2020. Right. Now we're in 2023. You have to make something good because you've got to compete with everyone else. So a little bit of editing, a little bit of color grading, a little bit of framing, a little bit of audio goes a long way. But at the end of it, if you create something that you just think, whoever your Sean is, that you just think, Sean's going to like this. I think Sean's going to really like this. You do that enough times, Sean's going to like it. He's going to like some of them and enough of them, and he's going to tell his friends, and that's what he's going to build. But we don't think like that. The way we think is, got to do something on socials. I forgot. Damian's going to tell me off. Hang on a minute. I'll take a selfie. And I'm like, why would Sean care about a selfie of me? Like Sean's going, there's Damian. Why? I don't care. Go away. So it's got to have some value to the other side. And if we're creating for other people and we can fit into the demographic, then there's a good chance that we could, we build that familiarity and then build that audience.
Wow. I love that. I love the idea of naming your people, naming your avatars and describing them, writing them, like literally people should write them down. They should draw a picture of Sean or whoever else it is, because that makes everything a lot more personal and the story you're telling a lot more intentional, right? That's what you're saying. Don't just make content, make it for Sean. And for people who are worried about being genuine, that is genuine because you're talking to somebody, you're talking to an audience, you're trying to speak to someone who you want to help or make feel a certain way, right? And that's really valuable. And how is that any different than anyone else who makes any other form of art? If you're writing a book, if you just write words on a page, no one's going to read it. You have to understand something a little bit about telling a story and drama and a hook and all this kind of stuff. And it's the same thing for creating a TikTok video.
It's 100% the same.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is, we as humans, and I get caught up with this as well, we always think about, I've got to do these things. Oh, I've got to do TikTok. I don't want to do TikTok. But we never get taken back to when we were younger and we think about what would it have been like if our favorite artists that we had just discovered on the way up were communicating with us. We just go, I've got to put something out. But, I think back when I was 15 years old, I was in a pool hall with my best mate at the time, the guy who got me to play bass. And there was like this big screen and we were just playing some pool and it had MTV on back in the day of, he used to play music before it played, 16-year-old pregnant women. And it was basically music and all the songs were coming on. We weren't paying attention. And then this song came on and it was these huge drums. And I was like, wow. And then this, and we were like looking at this thing like, what is good? Never heard it. Not a clue. And then watching the video and and this guy comes on and he's got his ESP pointy guitar. It's James Hetfield from Metallica. He starts singing Enter Sandman. And we are like Beavis and Butthead, mouths open. Oh, wow. It finishes the song. The truck's chasing the kid. That 3 minutes or 4 minutes changed my life. At that point, I was like, I've never seen anything like this in my life. Changed my life. We have these moments where these artists that we see them live or they change our lives. And imagine back in the day, if I had been able to see James Hetfield talking about something or doing something, we totally take that for granted, that there's people out there that will genuinely love to know more about you and get involved in the journey. But instead we go, I've got to post on socials. I'll just take a picture. That'll do. And it's like, it's okay, but the possibilities are endless. Can you imagine if James Hetfield, when I was 16, messaged me and just went, appreciate you, dude. End level. Like end game, I would be like, that's it. I'm 16 years old. James Hetfield has just messaged me and just basically said, thank you very much. All of the power we have and we do nothing. All of the times that we could look after people like they've never been looked after before and we choose not to. Someone will see something that means that much to them and they'll message you and they'll go, oh, this is so amazing. I just absolutely love this song. Thank you so much. And we'll hit a thumbs up emoji. And I'm like, dude, like someone's just literally giving you that opportunity of going, this is amazing. And imagine if you did that in real life. Imagine if someone just came up to you after a gig and went, mate, that was amazing. And you just stuck your thumb in their face and then you walked off. You'd be like, what a douchebag. But the opportunity of being like, start a conversation. I think what's really interesting is we just had CMA Fest, which in Nashville is it's the biggest festival of the whole city is country music. And I'm watching all these artists that are on their way up, not the biggest of the big, not the stadiums, but they're on the way up. So they'll play they'll play their 5-6 songs. And then after that, they'll put the guitar down and they'll walk off backstage. And there's like, because people are around, there's like hundreds of people in the audience. And I'm like, oh, this is not the way to build an audience. What you've done there is you've just said, you may join, you may watch me, you may have the privilege of watching me. And then I saw this one artist called Mitchell Tenpenny, and they're doing this Spotify house thing. Loads of artists. He walks in 10 minutes. None of the other artists have done this, but this is a big artist. He walks in 10 minutes before he's due to play. And he's standing at the side of the crowd and everyone's going, oh my goodness, it's Mitchell Tenpenny. He's going, hey, let me sign this hat for you. Let me sign this picture. People are handing him things. And he's just like, hey, give me your phone. We'll take a picture. He takes like 30 pictures with different people. And everyone's like, this is amazing. And then he goes on stage, absolutely kills it, sticks around for 10 minutes more afterwards whilst the next artist is going on. He is like first one in, last one out mentality. And everyone is going, this is amazing. This is amazing. But I don't know if he knows this in his head, if it's instinctual, it's just genuinely this nice. Every single picture that is taken is going on social media. Everything that happened is going on social media. And he's looking after people and he's like, let me take a picture on your camera. It's going to go on your social media. Let me take a picture on your camera. It's going to go on social media. I'm sticking around. Now, the difference is someone sees Mitchell Tenpenny, and goes, oh, I enjoyed that. That was really, really good. Same as social media. That was really good. Thank you very much. I enjoyed that. Or you have the opportunity to leave that gig after having a picture because he just happened to be there, seeing him live, having a conversation, signing a picture and going, I'm a fan. Not, thank you very much. I saw that. I'm now a fan. What did it cost you? Nothing. It cost you 10 minutes of your life. But everyone just walks off to the back to go to the green room and be like, oh, that was a great gig. Did you see me? I dropped stick and this happened and that. And the crowd are there being like, oh, that was good. Thank you very much. And it's like, oh, you just missed an opportunity right there to create fans for life. And you can do that on socials every single day. You can have conversations with people who just come in and just say, this is great. Thank you so much. And instead of saying, thank you, tell me about you. What other music you into? Gone to any festivals lately? Anything, not creepy, weird, but just having conversations. It's like, oh, that was nice. Had a conversation. And just, I'm rambling about this bit, but a really, really important thing was about a year ago, I got lots of messages on Instagram. And again, going back to the school thing, I'm not, great at typing and so fast. So I find this hack. It's got a little microphone, right? So I'm like, I'll just say the message in. So someone's like messaged me, oh, I saw this YouTube video. I just want to say thank you so much and ask a question. So I hit the microphone and I say, I just basically say thank you so much. And I answer the question. Now in my head, I'm like, this is the quickest, easiest way of basically just giving the person save time, nice and easy. I get this message back and it's like, holy shit, you didn't have to do that. Thank you so much. And I was like, what did I do? I literally this was the laziest thing I could possibly have done, was just to do a voice note. But not from their point of view. From their point of view, like, he just lent me a voice note. And I was like, oh yeah, that was what I was meant to do. That was totally calculated. When the reality, I was just like, that's quicker and easier. But he was like, that means so much. In the same way as if I send a letter, it means more than a text, it means more than a WhatsApp message. So you can look after people so easily for free, but we just choose not.
Does that mean, and maybe this is just the direction the industry is going, but does it mean that the music in a way is becoming second to the person and that people need to think of it that way? That the person...
No, I don't think so. Because I think, for me, if I'd have heard Enter Sandman or, I remember, another moment was, I remember a mate of mine handed me a CD and he was like, have you heard this band? And he handed me this CD and on the front of this CD was this dude who was on fire. And I was looking at this CD and I was like, whoa, the guy's on fire. He's like, yeah, the band's called Rage Against the Machine. This sounds crazy. And he put the CD in and it comes on with like Bomb Track or whatever it was. And again, I was like, this is amazing. I'm like, all of a sudden I'm like in. I'm like, this is amazing. I had the same thing when I heard Chop Suey by System of a Down.
Right.
I was like, what is this? But then I want more. then I'm like, hang on, what other songs have they got? And what do they look like? And who are they? And what's the message? And all of the bits fit together. The music has always had to fit in with the artist because the artist has always got something to say. Rage Against the Machine is big pentatonic guitar riffs and amazing bass with Timmy C playing and all of these cool things that it has, but it's attached to a message of what they stand for and who they are. And the video of them going outside, the banking system or whatever it was, all of these things is what the artist stands for. And now if you think about, that was just my background, but if you think about a 15-year-old girl who is lying on their bed crying because they've just been broken up with by their boyfriend, and they put on Shawn Mendes or whoever the 16-year-old heartthrob is at the time, going, this guy understands me. My ex-boyfriend's a douchebag. This guy understands me. The music is attached to the artist. It always has been. And so when people give me wasn't like this for Pink Floyd, it wasn't like this for Led Zeppelin, there's like a handful of these kind of legacy bands that everyone harps on about, Pink Floyd in the 60s. And I'm like, it was the same. Like, it wasn't any different. If Pink Floyd had been around now, they would have found a way of exploiting TikTok because they were geniuses. If Led Zeppelin were around now, they would have found a way of exploiting whatever the thing was at the time. The thing is the music still has to be attached to the message and what you stand for and who you are. Because if I'd have looked up at Enter Sandman and there'd been 4 Justin Biebers playing, I'd have been like, oh, it's not for me. I don't want that. I don't want 4 Justin Biebers playing Enter Sandman. So there has to be the both. They fit together. And I think the music is always going to be that first impression, because that's the bit that people go, what is this? My Rage Against the Machine moment, my Enter Sandman moment of like, what is this?
Right.
But then I'm like, who is this? And why do I like this? And what do they stand for? And can I want more? And if they don't provide more, then it's like, I like that song, which is a very different thing to, I'm coming to the gig. I'm buying a t-shirt. I'm telling my friends about it.
So it's music first, but then artists probably need to realize that their person becomes a commodity for them.
Yeah, because the artist becomes the most important thing. And also the other thing is, I get so many comments which just say, just concentrate on making good music. And the first thing I think is, what does that mean? Like, what is good music? Like, everybody concentrates on making good music, but I could hear 10 pieces of music and I might hate 5 of those pieces. For example, like, one of the biggest artists in the world is Drake. Possibly, if not the biggest, but one of the biggest artists in the entire world. I don't get it. Like, I just think it's awful. Like,
not for you.
Yeah, I'm like, where's all the melodic bit in the song? I'm like, he can't sing properly. He can't sing in tune. And at the same point, I don't understand the frequencies. Now, does that mean I don't respect him? No, I think he's incredible. I think he's the biggest artist in the entire world. Just not for me.
Right.
I just don't get it. But does that mean he's bad because I don't like it? No, it means someone likes it. So there's an audience for somebody. So when someone says make good music, I'm like, well, we're all trying to make good music, but you've got to make music that people like. And so there's obviously stuff which is objectively not very good because they're beginners at it. But one thing is, make good music is very difficult in quantifying. Is it good music? Well, this person likes it and this person doesn't. And so what we can do is we can make the best music we can. And then what we can do is we can take it out there and see if people like it and see if we can get in front of the right people, and we can learn as we go. And I think as long as we do that, then the music and the artists have to fit together, because all of those legacy artists, they survived the test of time, from Hendrix to Beatles to whoever else, because you can visibly see what it stands for. Musically, visually, artistically, creatively, everything. You can physically feel what it is, more than just, that's a good song.
Is there a jump off point though for someone who's maybe more beginner, who's trying to get better and better? Obviously, students who may come to our program who are intermediates or something, they're really looking for like that industry standard sound. They want it to sonically and dynamically, and in terms of sound design, sound great, right? Do you think people should wait for a certain jump off point to start the business side, and before then, do they do some kind of testing? How do you know when you're ready? All that kind of stuff.
I think that's the bit. Is that how do you know when you're ready is quite difficult because you've got, because everyone is different, because some people are going to need a jump off point. Some people are, looking at how they're going to build something, from scratch. What does that mean? So everything's, everyone's different. Everyone's got a different jumping off point. I mean, I think about myself, if I hadn't just jumped into, bass, then, when I jumped into bass playing, I just went and played some gigs. And I look back and I'm like, well, I was awful. I was terrible. But at the same point, if I hadn't done those things, then I would have got better. So how do you know? At the time, I just wanted to go and play some gigs and have some fun. I think one of the things I would say is coming to someone like yourself and saying, look, I know I'm early in the stage, but I want to be as good as I can. So therefore, can you help me with being the best person I can? Then that to me is the best of both worlds. Jump off, but find people that you trust, that you can say, look, I know that I have to hit a certain standard. Can you help me work with it? Because if you're constantly waiting, then you might just have something that you don't know about. So I think it's finding the people that you trust, like yourself, that we can be like, can you help me get this to a good standard and help me learn? Because also that's what this is, isn't it? I mean, I remember doing a YouTube video. I think I watched a Gary Vee video and I was like, that's a good idea. I'll make a YouTube video. Now, if I look back at my early YouTube videos, I'm like, oh my Lord, awful. I'm not saying my YouTube videos are amazing now, but they've come such a long way from where they used to be because I just went and made 1,000 videos. So, and if I'd been worried about the first ones being really, really bad, I probably would be still waiting for that day that I'm going to figure out. I'm going to get that moment of just being like, there it is. That's the perfect video. And you never know what's going to go. I made one video. I woke up one day, I made a video and it was called Stop Selling Music. And the idea was, at the time, it was like, look, I think we can all agree that people don't buy music anymore. That's not a thing. So let's figure out how we're going to monetize music. The idea was the positives of how you're going to monetize your music. What I hadn't considered is I made the title Stop Selling Music. And I hadn't figured that there was a whole generation of people that hadn't got the memo and they went crazy. Like I had 10,000 followers in like 8 hours. I had death threats. I was just like, dude, it wasn't my fault. I didn't stop CD manufacturing. It was like, I'm just telling you that people don't buy CDs compared to what they used to. 2001, 1 billion CDs were sold in America. 2022, I think it was like 30 million. It's a very different number. Don't shoot the messenger.
That number even surprises me.
So, it's just like, but if I hadn't woken up that day and just gone, I'm just going to make this video and just happened to do it in a certain way, I wouldn't have got that trajectory. So you never know. You never know what the sliding doors moment is going to be.
Wow, that's really interesting. You wrote a book based off that, or was that video the cornerstone for the book you later wrote?
Yeah, the book happened. As the video happened, I got so much hate. It was unreal. I got people saying, I can't believe that you would say such a thing. And in my head, it was like, am I in the future? Like, what's going on? Like, what? And I had loads of people who were going, I don't understand where the argument is. Like when you say stop selling music, I'm like, where is there to sell music? Like I can't even go to shops and buy a CD and like iTunes isn't there. Like where am I going to buy music? So to me, it was obvious, but it obviously wasn't obvious to a lot of people in other places. And, people will always say it's different from my genre or it's different from my country. And I think, no, it's not. It's not. I understand some genres might buy more CDs. And I'm not saying you shouldn't sell CDs because they're good merch. They're really nice. I have some CDs that they're meaningful. I can't play them because I don't have a CD player anymore. So it's like those sorts of things. And then from that, I was just like, well, I'll make another video. And that started to do really well where I kind of went into the hay. And in the end, I was like, it's such a great title, Stop Selling Music, that I was like, well, why don't I make a positive thing out of it, which is I'll write a book, which is instead of saying stop selling music, it's like, here's the journey of all of the things that you can do. There's so many amazing ways of monetizing. I was with an artist the other day and they've just left Sony. They've just left their record label. And I was, and I don't want people to think I'm anti-record labels, because I'm not. A record label is an amazing thing. If as long as you've got some control, as long as you find out the way that you've got control. But they left their record label. So I was like, you won a lottery. This is amazing. You've got all your followers. You've got this massive, everyone knows who you are. This is great. So we were having some tacos, and we've been talking about merch and a few other things. And they were like, got any ideas for like some things that we could do? Because everyone thinks about t-shirts. It's always the same old, same old. So I was like, yeah, how about this for an idea? Why not go and buy a Polaroid camera? Or if you can't be bothered, just download an app on your iPhone and just take a picture every single day that just represents the day. Take a picture of something that you're doing, whatever it could be. You're at a gig, take a picture. You're writing a song, take a picture. Whatever it is, just take a picture. And then handwrite on it, whatever it was. This is the day, 13th of June, blah, blah, blah. Just a little note to remind it. You do that for 365 days. If you miss a couple out, just add some extra ones in. 365 days. And then you've got a book called 365 Days in the Life of whoever. You can put this on Amazon for free, literally for free, and you don't have any printing costs. And every time someone buys it, they will literally buy it from Amazon. Amazon will print it, sell it, and send you the money for nothing, literally for nothing. And you will get your $4, $5, $6 for nothing. I got 2 books. One of them's very out of date. I got 2 books. Every month I go, a royalty check. Forgot. Just happen. I don't promote it. I don't do anything. It's just one of those things. It might be on the bottom of my YouTube video. Imagine that book that you did 365 Days in the Life of, Volume 1, was at every merch stand that you play a gig. It was on your website. It was in your socials. And all of a sudden it was like, hey, you want to be a part of this? This was just our year. This was a story of our year. Cost you nothing at all, apart from a little bit of hard work. You could go and make 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 grand a year if you can build the audience and people going, I like that idea.
Wow.
Imagine that times by 100 different ideas where you just kind of went, didn't cost me anything at all. I built a t-shirt, not me, but you could build an online t-shirt store and everyone goes, oh, it's got a t-shirt. It's got the big brand logo. And I'm like, don't just give people one option, because they might say, look, I like you. I just don't like the t-shirt, or I don't like the color, or I don't like the fit. Go and make 50 t-shirts, because what happens if someone says, oh, I like that one. I don't care for the band, but I like the t-shirt. Then I'm like, I've got loads of options. And it doesn't cost you anything because it's not printed. It doesn't exist. So if you've got 50 options and someone says, oh, I do like that one, and they buy it, or even a mug. The other day I was on an artist's website looking through their stuff, and they had a little pop socket to the back of a phone. And I use pop sockets. So whenever mine breaks, I'm like, oh, I've got to get a pop socket. So I just go on Amazon. I just type in pop sockets. Give me a pop socket. Don't care. And then I was like, oh, I could buy a band that I really like. They've got a pop socket. So I was like, I don't need a pop socket right now. But when I do, it's the first place I'm going to go to get a pop socket. Imagine if it was the same thing for a mug. I don't need a mug. I've got a mug. I use a mug. But the next time I drop a mug and I break a mug and I go, I need a new mug, I don't need to go to Amazon. I don't need to go to Walmart. All of a sudden, I'm like, I got it. My favorite artist, because I saw a mug on their website. I buy the mug for $10. You get $4. You didn't have to print it. There's so many things that you can do that isn't taken advantage, because they're not taking advantage of me going selling pop sockets. I'm not being like, they've got the monopoly in pop sockets. I'm like, oh, I'd love one of those. I just don't need one right now. But when I do, I promise you, I'm going to buy yours because I want everyone to know that I'm a fan of your band. It's not taking advantage of me. It's not this kind of capitalistic, awkward thing of like you're rinsing the fans. You're saying, no, I'm here for you. I want to buy stuff. But you have to give me the thing that I'll buy. Otherwise, I'm not going to do it. If you don't gig, I can't buy a ticket. If you don't put merch out, I can't buy it. Would I? 100%. Because I like clothes and I like mugs and I like other things.
Lots of words of wisdom, everyone, from Damian Keyes here today. We're going to have a little refresher, I like, in the middle of the podcast to just kind of refresh. We're just going to take a second. We're going to get a little bit off topic. I'm going to ask you a few questions here. We'll start off really simple. Okay. Damian, what's your favorite food?
Oh. Now that we've moved to Nashville, I do miss some of the foods that you get in the UK. A good fry up is good. A roast. You get you have Thanksgiving, do you?
Sure.
We don't have Thanksgiving in the UK, but a good roast. But I feel like I live off tacos at the moment. Nashville's just got a great food scene, and there's just a lot of good tacos. And every day I'm like, it's easy, it's not too unhealthy. And I'm like, I'm all in.
I love the food scene in Nashville and also tacos, so I'm with you on that. Let's go a little weirder on this. What is your stance on aliens and UFOs? Where are you at on that?
This is where I'm outside my comfort zone. I don't, in my head, there must be things out there, I would think. I mean, not that they're little green men or anything, but I would think that there's probably stuff out there. I'm a huge fan of Joe Rogan. And so whenever he's talking about stuff like that with some of the guests, I'm always fascinated by it. I think it's really fascinating about this race to Mars. And I think it's also fascinating with the race to Mars seems to coordinate very well with AI and the possibilities of AI destroying humanity. And I'm like, is there any, not that I'm a conspiracy theorist, but is there some kind of correlation between we might need to get off this rock and go to Mars at some point because all the computers have decided to gang up on us and the toasters are taking over. But yeah, there must be stuff out there, sure.
Stuff out there, but not here. It's not here, or is it here?
Cool.
I like to get people to commit to an answer here.
Do you ever, I don't know, do you have a Twitter, do you ever use Twitter?
I use Twitter, yes.
I don't post on Twitter, but I do use Twitter. Right. And when I see some of the people who post things on that, I think they are definitely not of this earth. So I would go as far as to say there must be people or things on this earth that have managed to get on Twitter because some of the stuff on there is crazy. So I'm going to say they must be walking among us.
They're walking among us. Okay. Official answer, final answer, as they'd say. Right on, Damian.
100%.
You mentioned earlier the role of the major label in all of this, and we were talking roadmap. We're saying, okay, we need to get content, we need to tell a story, we need to get up to 88 miles an hour. Is that to get the attention of major labels, or is it another path after that? What is the role of the major label now, and is it essential? Is that the only road?
Well, the good news is definitely not. I mean, you get artists nowadays that will turn down a major label, which is ballsy. Because if you think about a major sporting club, whatever type of sport you're into, if one of the majors comes knocking on your door and says, "Hey, do you want to sign for this club?" It's very difficult to say no. I'm from the UK. We watch soccer. We call it football. And if Man United come knocking on your door, you're not saying no. And same thing. If Universal Music Group come knocking on your door, it's very difficult to say, I'm not really interested. But it's not a necessity like it used to be. And so you get these artists like, Chance the Rapper sold $6 million worth of hats in whatever, 2018 or 2020 or whatever it was. I mean, and that pales into insignificance compared to the 12 or 15 million that he made from touring the year before, 20 million from touring the year before. So, there's so many things that an independent artist is now control of, but it's like being an entrepreneur. It's like being a business owner. So most artists, should you want to go down that route, this is why I call it, most people would say DIY. You're a DIY artist. And I think, well, LIY is better. Lead it yourself, because you're not going to be doing the ads. You're not going to be doing the, everything, the PR, the press, the radio, the touring, booking everything, the tour management, the driving. But you are in control of it. So you are kind of leading the charge. So I think the role is very interesting of especially where a major is right now, because I don't think many majors know what their role is right now. I think things are changing so quickly. A lot of Nashville is very based around radio. And we all know radio is dying, even though nobody in radio wants to admit it. And I saw a blog post the other day which said 92% of the world still listens to radio. From teenager right the way through. And I just thought, I don't know how you came to that conclusion, but it's simply not true. Unless you're thinking about, I happened to walk past a shop and a store and the radio was playing, or I happened to get onto a bus and the radio was playing. On the whole, I don't think I don't think people go searching up radio. We know that radio is not the same as what it used to be. But labels are very much into it, and they'll put a lot of money into it. And if that doesn't work for an artist, they're stumped. So now they're trying to figure out TikTok and going, there has to be this answer of like, how do we conquer TikTok, which is, it's just impossible to guarantee. but it gives it another string to the bow. But it was radio, now it's TikTok. And so a label is effectively saying, our job is to definitely collect libraries, because that's what a label is. A label is there to find and develop artists, but it's most importantly, it's there to build a library. UMG is the biggest library of music in the world, I believe. And so it's got the last 70, 80 years or whatever of recorded music, or a lot of it. And it owns it. So that's where it gets all the royalties and all the money from. Now it wants to keep building that. So it's always looking for the next Ed Sheeran or the next whoever, but the money comes from the library. And so it's constantly looking to build this library. And you see so many artists now that are selling their back catalogs. And so that's become a huge thing. But I really do think that a label's responsibility for artists is to do their best to help them with the promotion side, making sure the music gets out there. I think helping them, I think what a label should be is an artist should be able to monetize and be able to take a percentage of that, because I think it's fair. I think it's fair for me to say, look, you're a great artist, you're a great musician, you're a great songwriter. But if you don't do what you need to do, your music's going to sit on your phone or on your hard drive. No one's going to care, and you're going to have to work at Starbucks, whatever you work. If I could make this happen, where all of a sudden you are making $1 million a year from your music, I think it's fair that I should be able to take a percentage for making that happen. Whether that's 10%, 50%, whatever it is up to is up for discussion depending on who it happens to be. Because if I literally make that happen, I feel like I'm an integral part. So the labels are saying the same thing, but I think there's always been this history of ownership of masters, of we collect the royalties, we basically make this happen, and we probably take too much, and the artists a lot of the time don't recoup, and then they struggle to make any money, and then after a period of time they get spat out the other end and they become very bitter. And there should be a future in the way that there should be enough ways to make money now, industry bigger than it's ever been, in order for everyone to be looked up. Problem is how that happens and where the label will take that, because if you look at the industry, I think everything is up for grabs. If you look at all of the DSPs, Spotify, for example, these Silicon Valley companies, they don't make profits as such. So therefore, at some point, you're looking at this thinking, you do need to make money at some point. Otherwise, it is a house of cards that will fall over. So if they do fall over, where does the music? How do we listen to music? Because I'm constantly telling artists, when you make a piece of content, don't say, go and listen to my music on Spotify. We're not idiots. We know where to listen to music. If you say, go and listen to go and listen to my music, I'm not on the other side of the screen saying, where do I find this music that you speak of? I'm like, well, Spotify, that's where I listen to music, or Tidal, or Deezer, or Pandora, wherever you go to choose to listen to your music. I'm not an idiot. I know where music is. But if those go away, then I'm thinking, well, how do I get my music? Because now the cat's out of the bag. I can listen to anything at all, whenever, wherever. And so that's gone. So the idea of going back to physical is going to be tough for most people to buy music again. So what does it mean? So it's really interesting. So there has to be a way where the labels, the DSPs, or whatever that looks like, and the artists come together to figure out how it's worthwhile. Because I don't like the fact that artists make money from selling T-shirts more than they get from selling their music. I don't want that to be the case. It just is a thing, and for a lot of artists. So therefore, there's got to be a better way than excluding labels or excluding DSPs or the artists getting ripped off.
You think DSPs are being greedy, or is it?
No,
it's
just think it's a very, very not failed, that's the wrong word. It's just a very tough business model. I mean, I think we're the ones who are greedy. I think everyone thinks DSPs are greedy, but if you think about it, back in the day, I don't know if you're old enough to remember, but we used to have to get off our ass and go to the shop to buy music.
I do remember.
We literally had to, we had to literally go to town, go to the music store, buy the thing that we wanted for 10, 15 bucks and take it home. And we couldn't play it unless we had that thing. And it was 15 bucks and you get 12 songs. That's what it was. Now I want 55 million songs. I want it for 10 bucks a month. And it's like we're the ones who got greedy.
Oh, for sure.
And if someone said, you know what, it's not fair, really, is it? Probably need to charge you 50 bucks a month bucks a month for all the music. End game. We'd all go, I'm not paying that. I can't pay that. I'm not paying that for my music. That's the end. Spotify's gone because we just say I'm not doing it. But 10 bucks a month for all of the music in history, it feels not really like a good deal for the world. So I think everyone says the DSPs are greedy or the labels are greedy, but I think there was probably a happy medium somewhere, but we're just not going to pay it. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we're not greedy. Maybe it's just that's what came along. Maybe it was that, when NAFTA came along, we had everything for free. And so this was the compromise.
Yeah, this is the compromise. $10 a month is the compromise.
I was with a CEO from a label the other day, and he said something really profound that I thought was amazing. He said, we were talking about streaming. He said, streaming is the greatest thing that's ever happened to the music industry, which I do agree with him. But the way he phrased it was brilliant. He said, you always think about legacy artists. So you're always like, oh, this wouldn't have happened to AC/DC. Fair enough. Taking Queen and Pink Floyd out of the mix. What would used to have happened was you would make a record. The record label would make the record, print the record, put it into the music shop. Now, the music shop was a physical store which held a certain amount of CDs, for example. And that was it. It could only hold a certain amount of CDs, which meant if new CDs wanted to come into the store, old CDs had to leave. So therefore, your CD would probably peak in the first week when you put it out. Second week, it would come down a little bit. Third week, it would come down a little bit. And after a bunch of weeks/months, it would flatline to the point where the shop or the store wasn't selling. And then it would say, we don't need this. And it would throw them out or give it back to the record label in turn for the next batch. So your sales would spike, start to come down, get to the point where it was out of the store and you couldn't get that anymore. You couldn't buy it because there wasn't enough room in the store and it was gone. And so this was pre-Amazon. Before that, where it was just the store. Now, I can listen to anything from the last 60, 70 years, whenever I want, which means there's so many artists that are going, oh, I can get royalty checks again because I wasn't getting royalty checks from radio and I wasn't getting royalty checks from anyone buying my music because who's buying physical CDs? And now I made this 25 years ago and I just got a royalty check. And so you don't get the spike as much in the money, but what you do get is 10, 20, 30, 40 years of it. So what that means is if you manage your catalog, if you manage your music, then you can keep this royalty checks going forever and a day. Brilliant.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. You talked earlier about a future where the labels and DSP and the artist will need to have some clever idea to kind of make this all make a lot more sense. Do you have a vision of that? The Damian version of what that future looks like?
I mean, I have a bunch of ideas of what I think the music industry, probably like everyone, should look like and could look like. I think probably because probably like yourself, but I feel like I'm very much in both camps because I totally understand it from an artist's perspective, coming up, having a full-time job. This is my music. This is my art. I have to make this. But I also do understand it from a label's point of view when they're telling me they've just invested $500,000. Why is this not working? And I'm like, I get that. Yeah. That's tough. So it's put in both camps. But I feel like the ownership thing is probably coming. It's probably coming to a point where it's owning music forever. Practically for a long, long time is really tough. And it isn't. It isn't this partnership. So I think as artists get more power and as other people get more power, then it's going to take power away from labels. It's going to take power away from other people as AI or as just technology gets better and I can program things in and say, oh, I don't need that person. I can just do it via this. I don't need this person. I can program it to, and this gives me more power. All of a sudden, it takes even more power away from labels. And so there has to be this compromise of, okay, well, I can invest more money, but what do I get out of it? But then you have to get something out of it to be worthwhile for you. And it levels the balance. What I don't understand is why we are still dealing with the traditions of how to make money when there are so many creative ways of making money, like we said with merch, but to the point of we make content like this. This is like great content. I hope it's great content, but this is
I
this is
agree.
content. This is content that people want to watch. And so if you're an artist and you say, look, I'm going to, I write songs every day. I was with an artist the other day and I said, you've released like 12 songs. I was like, how many songs have you actually written and recorded? And he went, 400. And I was like, where are those songs? He's like, oh, they're on my phone or on my hard drive.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is monetizable content that your audience would love to have, but you are not allowing it and they are not able to buy it from. But why? Like you could put that behind a paywall and just say, look, whether it's a Patreon-esque type of thing, whether it's your own fan base, to say, look, I'll give you all of the extra stuff that you want so that the 5% of fans or 2% of fans will pay the money per month to get the extra bits. And if you took a fan base model and said, look, I love that artist. So like you used to have fanzines back in the day, I'll pay my $5 or my $10 a month, depending on who it is. And I'll get my monthly newsletter or my monthly video and some extra songs that they've written, but they aren't coming out or anything early or those sorts of things. I'll pay that a month for a few hours. Not for loads, but for the ones that really mean something to me. If you took a big artist, I imagine taking Metallica.
Yeah.
Metallica have sold, 100 million albums. Imagine Metallica said, look, for $5 a month or for $10 a month or whatever it is, you get to be in the Metallica fan club and you get X, Y, and Z. For someone like me, I'm like, I want that. I want the extra Metallica songs. I just love, I love the band, But imagine if you got out of the, whatever, 50 million people that love Metallica. Imagine if you got 200,000 people that just went, yeah, I'll pay you a tenner per month. That 200,000 people have just become, $2 million. If you got 1 million people paying you a tenner, that's $10 million every month. That's 1.2. Is that 1.2 billion? 10 million, $120 million, $120 million a year from just making some content that you've already got. That's there. You've got it. You wrote the songs, you recorded the songs, they're already there. You can make videos. I got a video. I got a microphone. I could just sit and I could play songs. I could say, here's the stuff that goes out on my socials. By the way, I reserve the extra 20% for my hardcore fan base. This is how you get into it. Like labels could just go, oh, that's easy. That's an easy way. Make a little bit of a kind of, some kind of thing. I know we've got Patreon, but Patreon feels like the up and coming artists busking, the online busking. And I'm like, I don't need to beg for someone to say, please support me. I can say, no, I make good stuff. If you want it, it's going to be in this store, whatever behind the paywall is, and you could get the biggest artists in the world. So I think it's just adapting to where we are at, and what is around the corner for AI, because that is both the most crazy, exciting, and terrifying stuff all in to me, all in one go. I'm like, I'm scared to death and I'm excited as hell at the same time.
I'm ready to talk about AI really quick. Before we do that though, what to surmise what you were just saying, it didn't seem so much like a compromise between the DSP and the label and the artist. It seemed like you're suggesting artists be more clever with how they monetize, and maybe that trickles into how labels manage artists and different things like that. But for the most part, it just sounds like you got to change the way that you're monetizing this.
Yeah, because labels are so caught up, unless you're a 360 deal, labels are so caught up with the streaming, because it's like, you've got this huge library, we're adding to the library, we're building the library basically, it brings in more money and it's exponential growth, et cetera, because they spend hundreds and hundreds of millions a year on A&R to find these new artists and get albums out. And so I think it's like $5 billion a year is spent on A&R, something like that. It's crazy amount in order to build the library. But everything is so focused on the master. So the music industry has always been the master and the publishing. Who owns the master? Who owns the publishing? And then that's the entire music industry. Whereas now I'm like, well, that worked from 1960 until 20,
2001.
Yeah, exactly. But now I'm like, I can make YouTube videos myself, and I can make TikTok myself, and I can do everything myself. So yeah, I think it doesn't necessarily have to just be this tradition. And I suppose that's probably, you were talking earlier on about the innovation. And I think it is innovative, but in my head, I'm like, it's just practical to just think we don't have to do the same things we did 20 years ago because the world has changed so much. Why are we doing that? Why are we thinking that we need to make money off music if we can build the audience? So, you build the audience with music, then you monetize the audience with something else. It doesn't have to be. So most people will say, here's my music. And I'm using myself to promote my music. It's the wrong way around. What we should be doing is we should be saying, no, I'm going to use the music to promote me because I'm the monetizable bit, instead of saying, hey guys, you don't know who I am, but like my music. Swap it. Here's the music. People go, this is good. Come on in and get to know me. It's just a better way around. And then they'll be there for the next song and the next song and the next. So monetization is we're just in a different time. So whilst it is innovative, but I think it's also just, well, that makes sense because the traditions have gone in the same way as when I said stop selling music and everyone was like, how dare you? And I was like, which bit of this do you not understand has already happened? It's not my fault.
Yeah.
And I think the monetization is the same thing. It's happened already. It's like, do you want to jump on board or do you not? The smart people are jumping on board. And so the labels might as well. But I think the labels are also probably 5 to 10 steps behind because they don't need to be.
Right.
They didn't need to be on TikTok until now. Now they do, and now they're panicking. But they didn't need to be on TikTok 2 years ago. But the artists that couldn't get any traction on Instagram and Facebook, and they didn't have any money for ads, were looking at this going, how did this work? Then they figured out TikTok, and the labels went, yeah, you crack on. If it works, we'll jump on board later because we got all the money. We can figure that out later. So traditionally, the music industry tends to be a little bit later from the grassroots of what's happening. Not a lot, but just a little bit. Education, then we tend to be, myself included, just a little bit behind that as well, trying to figure it all out. But I think that aspect of it's always, I look at YouTubers, for example, and I'm like, well, YouTubers figured this out way before. YouTubers are figuring out how to monetize, influencer marketing, how to build brands. Now YouTubers are ahead of the game again, because YouTubers are saying, well, hang on a minute. If I build a brand, I'm not interested in just being an influencer and just saying, hey guys, buy the thing. I'm like, I want to own the thing. You've got KSI and Logan Paul. They've got Prime. You've got Mr. Beast Burger. You've got all of these influencers that are just saying, oh, hang on. If I've got the influencers, I don't need to get money from you to influence you. I'm going to influence my own product and I'm going to build an empire. And like, that's the way musicians should be thinking.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be thinking, hey, I've got a bit of influence. Let's see if I can sell some hats. It should be like, no, let me build a hat company, because that's where that's where the money is. Now, artists will say, I don't want to. Totally fine. You don't need to. But if you've got the power, that's where, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you say, well, why am I doing this then? If you think about why you go into music, most people, it's because you love it, because you have that passion, or you wrote that song. And I made this, I wrote this, I did that gig, and people really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I want to do more. It starts with that passion. And then over time, you're like, maybe I could do more of this. Maybe I could make some money from this. Maybe I could build a fan base. Well, great. But what are you going to do with it? And if it's just to have 1 million people pat you on the back and just say, that was really well done. Good on you. I really enjoyed that. Well done. Then good for you, I guess. But why wouldn't you take those opportunities and say, well, this allows me to tour the world. This allows me to build a brand. This allows me to do all of these things on the side of my music.
Yeah. I think the one caveat to all of that is, well, at least you can tell me if you agree, but I think the thing holding people back from that vision is just work ethic and sticking with something long enough to see the results, because they don't necessarily come right away. There's almost like this exponential curve, like you were saying before, where it can be, to get to 1% takes a long time, but then once you get there, it grows really, really fast. But sometimes we give up too early and never get to see that. So do you agree that it's a work ethic thing and
I also think it's a fear point of view, and a lack of understanding. I think a lot of people do actually have the work ethic once they figure out how to do it. They just go, oh, what didn't you say? I mean, I remember having a conversation, we just got dropped off the label, and I remember talking to the manager at the time. And I remember saying, well, what do we do? What happens now? And I remember saying to him, I will do whatever it takes. The problem is I don't know what that means. So I'm like, if you tell me what to do, I will go and do it. In fact, that my entire career of is that message. If I could figure this out and I can help other people with it, I'm not saying, by the way, I'm not there being like, if I can help other people. I always hate it when YouTubers do it. I'm here for you. No, I'm here for me. I'm doing this because I love doing this. I love figuring this out. I love having an audience. I love talking to musicians. I love doing, having a life within the music industry. But at the same point, I'll do whatever it takes if I know what to do. And I think most artists are in the same boat of, if you tell me what to do, I will do it on the whole, as long as I think it's going to work. The problem is everyone's telling you all of this different stuff. And what I'm looking at right now is just a mountain. I'm looking at Everest and I'm at the bottom and I'm looking to the top and I go, and I have no clue how to get up there because it looks too far away. And instead of just thinking, well, I just have to get 10 foot and then I'll relook and then I'll get 10 foot and I'll get 10 foot and I'll do that 1,000 times. And the way we do that is we break things down to, hang on, let's start with just making good music and making good content and figuring out the questions like demographic and then piece things together rather than you've got to be on every social media and you've got to post 3 times a day and you've got to release every 4 weeks and you've got to do your own PR and you've got to be a copywriter and a website and a salesperson. Then it's like, this is too much. It's too big. Let's just start with one foot in front of the other and just build that. And I think if people understand what to do, a lot of people will do it. And you'll know what this is like. You put a piece of content out, it might be a song, but if it flops, you're like, oh, no, it can't be asked. If it does really well, you're like, let's do another one.
Right.
All of a sudden, I'm not tired anymore. I'm really excited to make another piece of content. Why? Because it works. If it works, I'll do more. The work ethic just got,
you got some wins.
It just came back to
me. You got some wins and wins are important too. But I still think it's those people that go through the losses when it seems like you're just losing a lot.
Yeah.
Who say, this isn't working, when they just needed to stick it out a while longer and keep pushing because, it can kind of take a while sometimes.
Absolutely. I mean, I think everyone, I read this book once. I don't know if you have them over here, but there's a company called Innocent Smoothie. I don't know if you have them over here, but they're kind of like they were a little smoothie, very big in Europe. I read their book and that like everything in life is like tension and release. It's like the Hollywood film. It's like, it sets the scene and then there's the storyline and then there's the disaster and then it's going to be okay. And there's like the tension and then the release, and music's the same thing. It's the verse, it's the tension, the release is the chorus. You have this kind of like, oh, it's going to be okay. So, that's part of life. These ups and downs, tension, release. So this Innocent Smoothie book didn't have any tension. It just went, oh, we made this thing and it became a multi-billion-dollar corporation. And it was like, a bit boring. On the whole, that doesn't happen to people.
No.
On the whole, we take an absolute kicking on a kind of regular basis. The roller coaster of being a creator, the roller coaster of being an artist, the roller coaster of being entrepreneurial. One day you're like, this is amazing. The next day you feel like you'd be beaten and you just don't want to get out of bed. And it's hard. And I think that's why, I think it's really important. I'm a big believer in systems. And I feel like, whenever I'm chatting to an artist, every artist wants to start with creative. Everyone was like, there's song and social media content and everything else. I'm like, no. Let's start with the calendar. That's what we want to start with. I want to start with things like what's going to fit into your Monday, your Tuesday, your Wednesday, your notes, all of those things. Those are the bits I want to look.
Yeah. Well, I'd be remiss to not go back to the one topic. I think it's a topic that's been on a lot of people's heads in 2023, especially anyone who has any sort of eggs in any sort of baskets. And that is, how is AI going to affect the future for all of us? For us in the music industry, it's an interesting conversation. I'm sure you have some thoughts about it. What do you think? What do you think's happening, and what do you think's going to happen with all of this?
Yeah, so if we're still here in 6 months because we haven't been wiped off the face of the planet, the bigger picture is, it is quite scary, isn't it? When you've got, I feel like when I look to people like Elon Musk and those sorts of people. I remember seeing an interview about Elon Musk, and someone said, "Oh, he worked with Elon Musk." He said his brain works so fast that he's almost like he's so far ahead of the conversation that he can just walk into the factory and just be like, people, all the brilliant minds have been trying to figure out some algorithm or something. He just walks in and goes, "Oh, use this, 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 this." And when someone like him just goes, "Oh, this is a bit scary," it makes me think, well, that sounds terrifying. Yeah. But I think before we have all of those things, I think there's going to be this incredible amount of control that's about to happen, where we can make videos. I mean, all of the things that we've struggled with over the last 5 to 10 years, the amount of times that over the last couple of years, I used to say things like, "You got to make a lyric video." You remember everyone was making lyric videos, and I don't think anyone likes lyric videos. They're always shit. But at the same point, you're like, make a lyric video. Can you imagine the lyric video now? It's just like, make me a lyric video in the style of Michael Bay.
Right.
It's the best lyric video that's ever been. So there's, I think it's diminishing the excuses because there's so many things. It's like someone like me, I'm not very good at, copywriting. That's fine. I got ChatGPT. I'm not good at remembering lines. That's fine, because something like captions, which is a new AI tool, allows me to basically read off an auto cue, which is to the side of the screen, and it will artificially, intelligently insert my eyes to look at the camera whilst I'm reading.
Wow.
This stuff is mind blowing. The fact that I can make myself into any kind of picture, any kind of art. I think I think we're all thinking it's going to do some great stuff. I think the interesting thing is where it goes with copyright point of view, because if you look at things like 11 Labs or there's other AI where you can sample a minute. I can sample a minute of your voice, and then I can talk and add your voice, and all of a sudden I'm now you. And so imagine if imagine if I want to do that as Snoop Dogg. I'm just like, I'm now Snoop Dogg, and I want Snoop Dogg to go and rap. I've got 250 grand to pay him. So I'm just going to 11 Labs, whatever it is. I'm just going to whack in the old Snoop Dogg, and now I've got Snoop Dogg playing. Now, I put this out in a video recently, and I had a bunch of lawyers arguing. I had one guy who was like, "No, you can't because of the likeness." And I'm like, no. This is not likeness. This is an impression. This is something that sounds like. So I used to write for, I used to play bass for a lot of guitar magazines. And so what would happen is they'd have a CD on the front cover with backing tracks. So I'd go in and play bass on these backing tracks. And then one of the great guitarists would come in and play in the style of Eric Clapton, in the style of Gary Moore, in the style of B.B. King. Wasn't B.B. King, wasn't Eric Clapton. It was in the style of. So therefore, it was completely legal, because it was like it was in the style of. It sounded just like it. In the same way as if I could do the best Snoop Dogg impression for you right now, then I'm allowed to do that, because I'm just very good at doing an impression. As long as I don't say Snoop Dogg performed on this and this is Snoop Dogg and I didn't sample it. And so there's so many complexities where all of the copyright law right now is going, is this legal? Because it doesn't feel like it should be legal, but there's no law. So you've got lawyers arguing, saying, well, technically it's not illegal, but there's boundaries and there's a gray area. So there's going to have to be some laws that come in, because there's going to be a hell of a lot of lawsuits coming in, that's for sure. So it's how do we get from the copyright perspective, what is legal and what's not? Because someone said to me the other day, I put this video on YouTube about AI, and they went off on one. They were like, I think that's a bullshit. I think you absolutely should not be able to sample someone's voice. If that's the way the music industry is going, it's a sad state of affairs. And I was like, 100%, totally agree. Except, what is the difference between that and the fact that you just made some AI art in the style of some poor artist that for an album cover, and you went, I don't care about that. It's not the music. The music's the important thing. And you've totally done the same thing to an artist for your cover, for lyrics in the style of the lyricist, in the style of something else. So if you're taking in the style of, if you're doing AI, it's got to take it from somewhere. So therefore, you're basically stealing someone else's work and making it and replicate it in the style of. Just because you put the onus on music, it doesn't mean that someone else doesn't put the onus on on Van Gogh or Van Gogh, or it is, or someone else, or you want to play piano in the style of someone else, you want to play, you just went, oh, just play me that guitar part in the style of John Mayer. It's like, well, what's the difference between the playing versus the voice versus the art versus anything, the lyrical content, the subject matter? It's all the same thing. It's just, we can't have one rule for one and one rule for the other, just because as musicians, we go, but the music's more important because we understand this bit. And so it's a fascinating watch. But I think AI is, we have just opened the door. If you think about where, I guess I don't remember it, but where probably Google and search engines were probably in 1999 or 2000 or whenever it started. I mean, can you imagine? We are seeing stuff getting incredible changes, like much better within a week. Like there's Gen 1, Gen 2, 2 weeks later it's Gen 3. You're like, well, that's much better. And it's only been 2 weeks. Can you imagine what this is going to be like in 3 years? It's both terrifying and amazing at the same time. But here's the most important bit. And I think this is the bit that artists need to realize, is you can be a purist and not use any AI, or you can say, look, there's stuff I don't care about. I'm going to use AI for these other bits. But the one thing AI, especially for now, is going to struggle with the most is getting people to care. Like it can put something in the style of, it can make something amazing. It can give you information. It can do so many different things. But to do something where an audience cares about it, and the way that you deliver something, whether that's you, the artist, has always been, and it probably always will be, even if it's in AI form, the most important thing. And that's why the music and the artist has to come together, because the artist is the bit that people buy into, that they believe, whether that's AI or not. And so I think it's making sure that you're a stronger artist and you're using everything else around you to become a stronger artist.
Yes, that's interesting. I'm a techno optimist, so I'm thinking we're not going to have the world end in 6 months. I'm just going to go there because if it does, then I'll die and I won't care. But let's suppose it works out and we're okay, right? I think a lot of people are really worried about this, but I think people have always been worried about big changes like this. If you look at the Industrial Revolution or the invention of the computer, these conversations were happening where, the invention of the computer, it was like, oh, this will just do away with every job. The computer will just do it, or it will put X amount of people out of work. And the Industrial Revolution did, and the computer revolution did, but the growth of the economy expanded 100-fold after each of these, because it creates new jobs, it creates new opportunities, things that are hard for us to see right now, right? And so I think, barring us just being wiped off the face of the planet, this is one of those exponential growth moments in which if what's happened before happens, AI will get rid of a lot of jobs that exist now, but create 100x the jobs. And we won't be looking for work. We'll be not having enough people to do it. And for the music industry, at first it will diminish maybe the value of music, but then so many more people will do it because of the cost of entry, and the ballooning of that economy will just make it, I think, potentially quite a bit better. This is my optimism, right? This is my...
I think, I'm with you. I totally agree. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of bumps on the way, but I agree. I think it's going to be, I think we're about to go into a crazy time.
It's going to be crazy.
It's going to be amazing.
It's already crazy.
Yeah.
The way I'm using AI already is, it's just lightening the workload of a lot of just really kind of time-consuming, redundant stuff I didn't like to do anyway.
Yeah. Like the idea of using Google nowadays, I'm just like, whenever I see Google, I'm like, man, Google. I'm like, go on ChatGPT, and I'm like, don't just give me a bunch of search engines. I'm just give me the answer and make it in a way that, in the style of something else.
Yeah. Someone gets sick in the family once, I need to write copy for a blog, if I need to write, and then I go in and make it mine, but it's like, all the redundant hard stuff is just really kind of going out, and those will be the jobs that go. But I'm excited to see, and I think maybe a visionary, if someone's thinking, a musician's thinking about the future and thinking about, hey, what are these possibilities going to be? What doors is this going to open within the music industry? And can I be kind of first wave on that? That's an interesting concept to maybe start thinking about, start exploring.
Yeah, 100%. There's so many opportunities. It's just now who's going to explore them and be opened.
It's hard to see past the event horizon of it solving problems that we have now and creating new problems and new opportunities. That it's just really hard to see past that, because we're so used to thinking about and consumed by the problems that we see around us right now. But it will happen. That's what happens every time. So hopefully we're alive in 6 months. We could kind of see all this go down. It's going to be an interesting time. Damian, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you for spending a couple hours with me here. I think so much of what you said was absolute golden nuggets, wisdoms from on high. Just people who are listening to this, I think, are going to get a lot out of this. And hopefully artists who are listening to this have a better vision and roadmap and understanding of some things they could start doing right now to get their career going and to know when to take that leap. So I really thank you for your time, man. It's been a lot of fun sitting down with you, talking. And
appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll keep training the artists, and then you can we'll set them up to send to you.
6 months. 6 months we'll do a part 2. I'll be like, everything's changed.
Yeah, right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Reverse Engineer Podcast. Damian Keyes, is there anything you'd like us to watch out for coming up for you before we head out?
No, just I'm all the usuals. So anything you need, I'm always around.
Awesome. Check out DamianKeyes.com and everything else he's doing. Thank you so much for your time, man. Have a good one, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much for checking out this episode of the Reverse Engineer Podcast. And if you do have any more questions about our renowned education platform for engineers and producers, just go to mastering.com. We have a lot of great information there. We can answer all of your questions. And if you did like this episode of the podcast, please give us a like, give us a review, tell your friends. We really appreciate the support. Thanks for now. We'll see you on the next one.